So I'm really pleased to introduce our three presenters today. We have Clément Michel, who's President and CEO of Keolis North America. Clément leads Keolis' existing operations throughout the U.S. and Canada, as well as oversees the future growth of the platform. His full bio is available on our event page. Andreas Mai is Executive Vice President for Market Development and Innovation at the Keolis Group. He leads innovation to deliver sustainable transportation solutions to public agencies and communities at Keolis North America. And Sarah Swigert is a manager with the Autonomous Vehicle Strategy Group with AAA, Northern California, Nevada, and Utah. Her team is focused on continuing the 100-year legacy of AAA in traffic safety and transportation innovation. So with that, we have three presenters, and Clément is going to start us off. Clément, off to you.
Good morning, afternoon, everybody. It's really exciting to be part of a meeting of the minds, and thanks, Jessie, for the kind introductions. We have gathered a few lessons from our operations in Las Vegas and in other places in the world. We've been operating two driverless shuttles for a year and a half in a regular service in Lyon, the second city in France, and we have learned a lot about this. You see a couple of other operations we have started since last year or earlier this year in Paris, La Défense, the business district, downtown of Paris. And launched last month driverless shuttles at the Paris airport. We have done some pilot projects around the world, from UK to, of course, the one that is the main subject of today in Las Vegas. But let me start by what we have done in Lyon. A year and a half ago, we launched this service, which is actually integrated within the public transport network of the city. In Lyon, Keolis operates on behalf of the public transport authority all modes of transport. We operate the metros, the driverless metros, the buses, the bus rapid transit, the bike sharing scheme. And we went to the Public Transport Authority with a proposal to launch a pilot project there. You see on the picture that the Charlemagne station is actually an interchange station with the tram system, which we operate there too. And we have now regular services with a 15-minute peak times frequency on this place, and it's been highly successful, as you see here. That made us actually go to Las Vegas a bit more than a year ago and launch a service most recently.
Yes, and in Las Vegas, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. This is Andreas May. I think what really happened in Vegas is a burning question everybody may have here. No, what happened on day one of the operation was that our shuttle operated as wonderfully designed, and then a truck driver decided to back into the parking shuttle that was a little bit trapped on the road, could not get back. And as you can see here, the policeman on the picture established it was human error. But the interesting part of that story was the media was all over it, and it was quite a ride, we can tell you, even though it was just a minor little dent. With this is our Las Vegas pilot, Sarah.
All right, thank you, Andreas. So after that very eventful start, we are happily in our 5th month of operation of this shuttle in downtown Las Vegas. AAA is sponsoring this pilot for a full year with 2 key goals in mind. One, we want to provide as many people as possible a chance to experience AV technology for themselves, and where better than Las Vegas, one of the biggest tourist cities on earth. So we have our ridership is a mix of both tourists and locals alike. And then our second goal is to really study the public perception or barriers to more adoption of AVs. And we at AAA believe that while this autonomous vehicle technology has been advancing very rapidly, we believe that public education, such as this real-life experience, can be crucial in improving the broad acceptance and community readiness of this technology that can bring such massive benefits to communities across the world. And our preliminary survey data is showing just that this experience is meaningful. Shuttle riders have indicated a significantly better sentiment towards autonomous vehicles after their experience by an increase about 30%. So that's very encouraging so far. In the spring, we'll be expanding our research to further study how the people in Las Vegas would like to see autonomous vehicles in their communities and what they perceive as the benefits, risks, or barriers for them to embrace this new technology. Looking forward with AAA engagement in the autonomous vehicle space, we'll focus on how to advance this industry safely so that all can enjoy the benefits that it promises. And this pilot in Las Vegas is just one activity within our AAA strategic portfolio, and I'm happy to connect further offline about how AAA sees its role evolving in this increasingly connected world. And we're very happy to partner with Keolis in Las Vegas, who is really impacting communities around the world.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. And we are really grateful to have AAA as sponsor here. It's been a great experience on that front. As you may know, Navia provides the vehicle. We as Keolis operate the shuttle. So our team does all the heavy lifting from planning to ramp up to the day-to-day operation. So in the following, let me share a few of the lessons learned from all of our shuttle operations, actually. So the first message I want to get across is communities love it. So if you see passengers, and I rode with many of them myself, some of them are really scared, and when they did their ride, they are actually excited. Now, the cities love it. We are in multiple discussions in Las Vegas and many other cities to build operations such as the one you just saw in Las Vegas or in Lyon. In businesses, particularly in Las Vegas, a funny story is that some of the stores along the route, donut store in particular, is sold out during kind of early afternoon hours. So businesses really appreciate the increment in traffic they get through operations like this. But bottom line, we have come to conclude that these types of operations, autonomous operations, are a great solution for feeder services, for any downtown circulator like the one that you see in Las Vegas, closed corridor transportation, or employee and parking shuttles. But also, I mentioned it before, there is some very heavy lifting to do on our part as operator. So NHTSA, to be named here first, needs to provide licenses for the operation of such pilots or demonstrations, and it's very unpredictable. So given that everybody, and that includes us, is doing these shuttle demonstrations for the first time, everybody is kind of rolling with the punches, so to say. Similarly, insurance is available, but at a higher premium, obviously, because there's very little data, very little reference that would allow them to gauge the risk. What we also found in Las Vegas and in RTC, we found a great partner to do this, that the deployment requires very close collaboration on the infrastructure side for instance, traffic light timing, for deploying DSRC, for instance, GPS, cell towers or charging stations, or simple things like storage. The other finding we had was that the quality of the GPS signal or DSRC, and in particular cellular, varies widely across locations and providers. So we've done similar tests in Atlanta, in Montreal, and it is really important to figure out what coverage you have to make sure that these vehicles are continuously connected. We also found that we had to work very closely with the local police and fire departments also on training them on the AV technology. Actually, the policemen that you saw on the previous page were probably one of the very few and first policemen that had to deal with an autonomous incident. So there's some level of training, education to be done here. It's also a very elaborate startup process. We were surprised how diligent we had to be on the routing and mapping side, on the GPS and the DSRC requirements. We had to put a lot of attention to detail to make sure that the project was sound and safe and operational. The last point I would like to highlight here is it requires also a very high level of ongoing technical support, maintenance, and remote and on-site supervision. Yeah, so interestingly, as you can imagine, these vehicles need to be monitored on a continuous basis, and that needs to be done on both fronts. So both real-time on-site as well as continuously from a command center. Today, we have almost 50 autonomous deployments in play around the world. So you hear a lot of reservation in some of the panels you see everywhere on autonomous. But we can tell you from our experience that the beginning is here. We see a lot of interest all around the world and are deploying or operating these facilities everywhere. The microtransit portion here is emerging very fast. So today, for the most part, we see operations where the vehicle is autonomous, but only on fixed route deployments. So that, I would say, is pretty much table stakes today. That's what you see in Las Vegas and all the other pilots that or demonstrations, operations you've seen on the previous chart. But the future is coming fast on that front as well, where we have robotaxis, where the vehicle navigates autonomously to any destination on any route. We just launched this vehicle. It's also produced by Navia at the CES, and we expect those vehicles to come to us here in North America in the second half of the year. But bottom line, we believe that the aspect of sharing here is key to improve public transportation. We have one of these larger projects going on in Paris, where we have really put up a shared mobility service that is truly an alternative to driving in your own car. It is priced right between what you would pay for public transport and Ubers and Lyfts of this world. It is a fixed price in this case here for €5 per trip, and it is a substantially lower subsidy than if you would provide comparable bus services in these locations. And it's also a very nice way to feed the public transportation services. At that point, we are very proud to announce that literally on March 8th, so that's not long ago, the Orange County Transit Authority has unanimously approved us, Keolis, to operate their first microtransit pilot. It's 2 service zones that we will be servicing starting June 1st. It will be operated from our taxi and Western Transit location in Garden Grove. It's a 1-year pilot, and bottom line, Okta wants to become more competitive with the on-demand ride-sharing apps like Uber or Lyft. And this microtransit that we will provide will particularly add connections to the OC bus network and Metrolink commuter rail stations, with a goal to provide public transit mobility in those underserved areas, to extend the reach of these OC bus and Metrolink services, but also to reduce the operating costs and capital costs required and the vehicle miles traveled. But why do we hone in so much on the sharing side of autonomous? We believe we need to strike a very delicate balance between the commercial and the social bottom line. In a study that was conducted by Boston Consulting Group as part of an effort of the World Economic Forum, they concluded that if left alone, autonomous ride-hailing services have the risk to take away up to 39% of riders from public transportation. At the same time, they would add a lot of congestion, as the if we live in New York, can experience today to our roads, because there will be more cars on the road trying to find passengers. And this could have a devastating impact on the public transportation budget as it stands today. Today, the subsidy accounts for about 67%, meaning Farebox covers only 33% of the overall cost. In a future where autonomous vehicles eat away market share in the range of 39%, the subsidy could easily go up to 80%. And it's why kind of this future mobility game, as I call it here, is in full swing. You see here at the bottom the consumer, where pretty much a number of new entrants, but also all the auto companies are striving to build their consumer-facing app to primarily provide pay-per-use or monthly pass offers. And this then is fed into what we call here a mobility platform operation that passes on revenues to two types of operators. The one operator is pretty much what we do, Keolis, as our core business today. It's all the bus, rail, and bike sharing, any form of transport of passengers in cities. But the other one is this new breed of self-driven vehicle transportation operator that provides in the future, as we heard earlier, on-demand services. And all the auto industry, as we can imagine, rightfully fears for their future and has a very, very high interest in selling and leasing vehicles for these new services. And the big question here that comes up is, who will be the winner? Will it be cities managing transportation as a holistic service, or will it be new entrants that will take over transportation provision of transportation services from these cities? So the big question, who is the winner? We believe that integrated multimodal mobility as a service is the key to all of this. Autonomous is just one little piece of the puzzle. So we look at it from four major pillars here. We need to have a complete transport offer, because even the best autonomous services will not be able to transport that many people in dense urban environments. So you need to have a healthy mix of different modes. And you need to lay out the system to minimize connection times so that the traveler can really change easily from mode to mode. You need a very powerful digital or e-solution that provides real-time information, data analytics across the entire system, and improve the communication and the planning capabilities of the people using the system to be able to respond to customer needs. This goes hand in hand with physical signage everywhere in the city, everywhere in the network, that displays the destination, that displays correspondence and waiting times. Customer service staff is still needed to help people that are less prone to use digital solutions. And you also should not forget safe and comfortable waiting areas, which help a lot. And lastly, one element that is mission critical is single ticketing solutions that allows travelers to provide seamless travel, or to enjoy seamless travel in an entire region. And this needs to be augmented by very efficient revenue management, to the point that you potentially could calibrate prices depending on supply and demand to steer people into the modes that you as a city want them to use.
And as Andreas was mentioning, it's really not all about self-driving vehicles, but the trend is to be carefully monitored and prepared for throughout the world. Keolis operates all transportation modes in 16 different countries. We were the first one talking about self-driving vehicles to actually launch self-driving metro, the first driverless metro in the world in Lille, a city in France, at the border of Belgium, and also the first company to automatize a traditional metro line into a driverless metro in Lyon, the city where we operate all modes of transportation, as mentioned earlier. We also are a subsidiary of SNCF, the French railroads, and therefore through our main shareholder SNCF, we operate high-speed trains, regional trains, the TGV in France, and we are one of the early investors in Hyperloop technology also. And so looking at all those types of network, let me just spend a couple of minutes on Bordeaux. Bordeaux is the fourth city in France where we also operate all modes of transportation, including the ferries, the buses, the trams, the BRTs, and where we have looked at the four pillars Andreas has mentioned earlier, and really looked at a complete network redesign where we are integrating now bus and tram timetables and routes, and where the objective of Greater Bordeaux, the Public Transport Authority, was really to increase capacity, increase ridership for a more sustainable city, and for making it more sustainable and attractable to new businesses, but also to reduce the dependency on subsidies for its transportation network. And that's what we've achieved by increasing the network capacity, kilometer capacity by 8%, and the bus services by 35%. And we've seen a real increase in ridership. And most importantly, for the Public Transport Authority, a recovery ratio that went from 27% to 36%. So almost a quarter of recovery to more than a third. And you will see the network. This is a technology we have developed over the years and implemented in different countries in the world, where we really look at the service quality index. So the service quality, the public transport, the accessibility to public transport. So what does it mean? What type of frequency do you have? What type of capacity? What are the hours of service? AM, PM, at weekends, late at night, the comfort of the type of services you have, and whether they're going to the place where you need to go to. And by doing this, and in partnership with the cities, the public transport authorities, we are developing what we call a service quality index, which enables us to make some real hypothesis on the network and redesigning the network. And you see a before and after view of the service quality index in Bordeaux, and the key results in terms of customer satisfaction, in ridership, going from 94 million to 138 million trips in Bordeaux alone. And all of these points to actually really insist on the fact that having an integrated view of what is a transportation network is critical, and the arrival of self-driving shuttles, vehicles, needs to be carefully looked at. In Bordeaux, and to build up again on another point from Andreas, on ticketing and mobility as a service, we now have developed on behalf of Greater Bordeaux an integrated app that is actually giving personalized multimodal end-to-end journey planning with for a modest sum of 40 euros, gives you a monthly city pass with unlimited access to the modes that we operate, but also others are operating locally with the option for bike sharing, car sharing. It helps you decide what is the best itinerary for you according to what is your need, the quickest, the cheapest, or the fittest if you're in for a bicycle ride. Also to enable decreasing fare evasion, but it's also giving you eco-loyalty points And when you are validating on the network, you have access to points that give you cinema tickets, or better, because we're here in Bordeaux, free bottles of Bordeaux wine. So we see that the city itself, the public transport authority, has to be at the heart of every conversation around self-driving vehicles and mobility as a whole, and all the lessons around infrastructure, or the fact that it's absolutely critical that we are sharing the fleets of self-driving vehicles. We were extremely excited to receive the invitation from Robin Chase to join the Share Mobility Principles for Livable Cities initiative, and it's 10 principles. Please go and have a look on sharedmobilityprinciples.org for more. We really like the principles, completely aligned with the work we've done in the past, and it's helping having the relevant conversations around shared mobility and on self-driving vehicles in particular.
Yeah. And while kind of the premise of today's presentation was the autonomous vehicle, we think the right question to ask is put here on this last page of our presentation. Where are you today, and where do you want to be on the kind of city transportation maturity level that we see different cities to be at? Yeah? So we see majorly 5 stages here that we have to kind of elevate to. Number 1 is really business as usual. That's the traditional PTA that is operating typically one mode of transportation. The next level is really to drive global best practices in single modes. A good example for this is what we are doing in Boston with the commuter rail, where kind of we are importing experts from all over the world to improve operations, to improve maintenance, to improve even revenue in Boston. The next level then is if you add new modes, you add other modes that complement your system, that feed your system and make it even stronger for your customers. The next level we see cities evolve to is to operate it, as we just alluded to, as an integrated multimodal network. And that can happen on a city level, on a regional level, or cross-regional level. And here we see some challenges where we see regions in the United States that have north of 200 different PTAs. And to manage what we have managed in multiple cities in France and across the world is really a major undertaking. The fourth level of maturity that we see is you integrate the traffic management aspect to it, because you cannot look at a city without looking at the fact that passenger vehicles consume or produce over 90% of the surface miles traveled. So managing parking, smart road pricing, or also goods delivery with kind of sometimes occupying 42% of trips into a city are mission critical elements. And then only on the last level of maturity, we see the integration of self-driven vehicle modes that create value either in a fixed road or in on-demand level. And we here see additional opportunities how we can use the free time that we deliver to our passengers with incremental services around the ideas of providing food, providing the ability to work or entertain our passengers, or give them the opportunity to shop while commuting. With this, we are at the end of our presentation and would welcome any questions you may have.
Great. Thanks so much, you guys. So we're going to go into our Q&A. We already have a bunch of questions that have come in. So if you have any more you want to ask Andreas, Clément, or Sarah, you can type them into the questions panel on the right of your screen. We have about 10 that have already come in, or more, 13 now. So, and I also want to just point out that in the handout section in your control panel, we have already uploaded the slides from today as a PDF, so you can see see those there, as well as 3 brochures from Keolis regarding the Navia shuttle, as well as a few other things from AAA, and then a mobility handout from Keolis as well. So going from big to small, Clément, I want to ask you this first, and then maybe Andreas second. What's keeping U.S. cities, and Andreas, you touched on this in the current slide on 3 integrating multimodal networks. What's keeping U.S. cities from implementing the end-to-end mobilities as a service network and app like Bordeaux is doing? And Andreas, I know you touched on that a little bit, but Clément, maybe to you first, and then Andreas, what's keeping U.S. cities from doing what Bordeaux has been able to do?
This is a view of somebody who's been here not long on the territory, a couple of years now, but with a couple of interactions with people around. And Andreas is extremely right to mention governance in general. Difficult when you're in over several jurisdictions to actually optimize transportation networks. Also funding mechanisms, of course, when you think that some of the fundings of public transport networks are highly linked to a referendum question that was passed in 1985 and might be counterintuitive now when you want to change allocation of funding. And I'm thinking lots of funding now in the US is linked to fixed route transportation. And so therefore, if you want to reduce kilometers of fixed route to go into on-demand services, it might cause some problems of funding and sustainability of funding. Also, some of the technology hasn't been put in place for some time, and I would say a very simple technology, but around contracting. So contracting of or outsourcing of public transport networks has been done in a very simple manner here in the United States with a request for a contractor not to bring too much innovation in general. I'm not talking here in specifics because you've got exceptions here and there. And there's a few places where the contractors, the operators, private operators, are given the leeway to really bring innovation. And Las Vegas, for instance, is a notable exception, and the team at the RTC in Las Vegas is doing an extremely good job at bringing innovation.
Yeah. No, and from my perspective, I just had the luxury of coming back from a 2-week trip in Europe to see some of these operations, because we just showed you Bordeaux, but there are many, many other examples in Europe and around the world. But the interesting takeaway for me was actually threefold. Number one was everybody refers to, in particular, France as a socialist country. And if you compare it to the kind of how many of these operations are actually in private hands, like operated by somebody like Keolis, the share is significantly larger in France than here in the US. I think in the US, it's just 8% of PTAs are operated as a public-private partnership. So that was key takeaway number one. Key takeaway number two is it all goes down to funding. Yeah? So the first step is always, what would make you as a PTA decide that you put your budget into the big bucket of the region, lose control that way, to create this integrated multimodal network? It's a big leap of faith. Yeah? And this goes hand in hand with number three. We have very smart funding mechanisms. Some cities here in the US increase the sales tax. In France, it's a tax on the payroll tied to the number of people traveling inadvertently that they charge to enable the build out of such integrated multimodal networks.
Great. Good. Thank you so much, you guys. So let's move a little bit to the Las Vegas Shuttle project. There's a lot of questions coming in about the Vegas project. which is still running. There's a question about that. Yes, it's still running. And maybe Sarah, a question for you. How do you guys count the passengers first? And then also, can you talk a little bit about the breakdown between tourists and locals using the shuttle in Vegas? Sarah, over to you first, but you can shoot that question to Andreas or Clément if you want.
Thank you, Jessie. Our passengers in Las Vegas are greeted by AAA brand ambassadors that are on the ground to welcome them, answer any questions, and then the passengers also interact with the Keolis operator on board who just does a manual counting of the passengers. And I'll let Andreas talk about some key metrics that we track for our passengers and for our rides. Currently, we are not doing a tracking of every single passenger of where they are from. So we count them manually as they get on the shuttle. And then they are handed a postcard and invited to take our online survey, which is where we're getting majority of our insights right now. And we ask them whether they're from the United States, Nevada, United States outside of Nevada, or international. But it will really be more in detail into the spring as we expand our on-the-ground research methods, and we'll get a lot more demographic information about our shuttle riders. So right now it is a little limited, but for a few-month period in the spring, we'll be investing into additional survey research on the ground to get more of that demographic information. But right now from our online survey, it does indicate that about half are from the Nevada area and half are from outside Nevada.
Great. Andreas, anything to add to that?
I couldn't say it any better.
Okay, great. And Randy has a question. What's the intent? Is there intent to expand service in Las Vegas after the pilot's complete? Sarah, to you.
Right now, AAA's engagement is focused on this one-year demonstration, hoping to, give as many people a chance to ride, and I'll let Keolis expand on future plans.
Yeah, we cannot go into specifics because that is confidential at this stage, but we are in various discussions to expand services in Las Vegas on multiple fronts.
Great. Great. And how did you guys decide on the route for the shuttle in Vegas? What kind of data informed the decision on the route? Sarah, over to you.
I will again kick this to Andreas, who was involved with the initial pilot in January of 2017 that was able to inform how and where we launched in November. But Andreas?
No, the route is in the Innovation District, so that was the, I would say, number one qualifier. So Innovation District goes nicely along with an autonomous shuttle. But it's also in an area that is highly frequented by tourists. It's in an area that you could actually claim it's a little bit of a stress test for such a vehicle, because Las Vegas is known for a lot of crazy people, and we have seen kind of the shuttle being put to test by many people who jump in front of it, who are under the influence. And so we are proud to report that the shuttle has mastered all of these challenges. So for us, that was also a reason.
If it can survive Las Vegas, it can survive anywhere. Great.
Yeah,
funny.
The additional exposure and value of that location is not only the passengers that are riding the shuttle are getting the experience, but also just the numerous pedestrians that are at the adjacent sort of pedestrian entertainment district and the vehicles that are commuting and back and forth. So even I believe our ridership numbers are at 17,000 right now, but the additional thousands of people that are just getting exposed to it by walking by and seeing it on the streets, walking in and out of those businesses. So that's been an extremely valuable part of the pilot. Great.
And a couple more questions about the Las Vegas pilot. One from Micah. Is the Vegas shuttle on demand, or is it scheduled service?
At the moment, it's fixed. But one of the discussions we are having is about the on-demand service.
Great. And one question for you, Sarah. Does AAA have future planned locations? It's okay if it's confidential, but Egon is curious.
No specific plans at this point. Really, Las Vegas has sort of achieved all, or not achieved, but hit a lot of the priorities that we were looking for in terms of mass exposure for the autonomous shuttle. So additional pilot locations is not a priority for us in the future, but we are very eager to hear about additional opportunities to make this available for more members, but no specific plans right now for autonomous shuttles.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
from our,
Andreas.
if I may add that, Jesse, from our perspective, one thing or one message I would like to get across: it's always a Herculean effort to just stand up such an operation for, let's say, a weekend or a week or a very limited period of time. We kind of think that the model that we have in Las Vegas, to have it run for at least a year, or I would say minimum 6 months, has benefits on multiple fronts. It allows you to kind of manage the ramp up cost a little bit better, and it exposes you to a real life experience. So you have many more proof points to see that it really works out for your city. And so I encourage everybody who is pondering about just doing a 2-day or a week, kind of to step away from this and really think whether there are any routes where you can deploy such an operation for a longer period of time.
Great advice. Andreas, a question from Matthias. Can you talk a little bit more about the data sharing needed between the city and your operations around AV? And did the city have to change anything about their data operations to make the pilot work?
Not the data, but the infrastructure to support connectivity. Yeah, so the communication of the vehicle with the traffic lights, for instance, something that happens in every good bus operation where you have priority timing for your buses. It's a very interesting feature that makes the ride much smoother. So that's, I would say, the one thing that really sticks out. In the future, we believe that the integration of autonomous shuttle services in the overall command center of managing traffic of a city is critical. So you will have the, let's say, regular traffic that you need to monitor in conjunction with the autonomous traffic. And then the last element of this is you need to obviously also monitor what's going on with your autonomous vehicle remotely, kind of what's happening in the cabin. Is the vehicle cyber secure? Is somebody trying to kind of ram into the vehicle? Things like this need to be monitored centrally.
Great. And what's the speed of the vehicle, and how does it compare to other pilots in other cities that you're working around the world?
At the moment, it's, oh my God, yeah, I'm drawing a blank here. I think it's 12 miles per hour. But the interesting thing is we started slow, and the idea, or one premise of the pilot, is also to increase the speed of the vehicle with its learning curve. So the vehicle learns every day to master this course, and the more experience literally the vehicle has, the higher the speed can become. An interesting side statistic is the average speed of a bus in any city in the United States is 14 miles per hour. So whoever is kind of pushing for more speed, we need to face the realities of dense urban traffic. Yeah.
And how is the speed? What is, Clément, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to just on the point above before on data and sharing of data. In the shared mobility principles, there is a point on aim for public benefit via open data, where we really believe that as much open data is necessary to be able to ensure interoperability, competition, innovation, while of course ensuring privacy, security, and accountability of the relevant operator.
Great. And actually, that was a question. Go ahead. Yeah, Andreas. Maybe you could touch a little bit more on the security issues that have come up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but it's a great point that Clément reminded us on, because we actually have a collaboration with our subsidiary that helps cities put out open data platforms. So we have, I think, over 2,000 cities in the world that are using our data platform to provide open data on everything public transportation and more in the world. Yeah. And the second part of your question was, Jesse, on security?
Oh, yeah. Kevin's asking if there have been any security issues that come up with the lack of the actual operator on the AV, but I think you said there was an operator, somebody on the AV, although not operating it, but have there been any security issues?
Not any we are aware of on any of the operations we have around the world. That's the interesting result that so far, and I'm crossing my fingers here, we have not had any serious incidents.
And a follow-up question to that regarding reluctance of passengers, CL asking, is there a reluctance by passengers to share a shared shuttle with other unknown travel parties? Are you guys gathering any data on kind of travel behavior and psychology of sharing with other strangers?
So far, that has not been a focus. I think also not for AAA. I can just tell you that whenever you write, and I invite everybody to come to Las Vegas and try it out, whenever you are in such a shuttle, it's actually a very nice social experience, because there's kind of very few teenagers even that text while they are driving the shuttle, because they interact with the people enjoying this ride.
I agree. The apprehension, we have not seen concerns about that shared aspect to the ride. It's Las Vegas. Everyone's in a good mood, so it's a really enjoyable experience. Our brand ambassadors that are on the ground are there to answer questions and invite people. There are certainly, we get the entire spectrum of people that are so enthusiastic. They came to downtown Las Vegas specifically to ride this shuttle and jump on board the future of transportation, and then others weren't aware, are not expecting this, and say, hey, no way, I'm not going to jump on that. But then they have the chance to have a conversation with someone that's knowledgeable and welcoming, and they explain a little bit about the technology and what the pilot program is. And that's the most rewarding part for AAA, I would say, is when we get to convince those individuals that are more skeptical about the AV technology and invite them to come on board. That's the entire purpose from the AAA perspective, and it's just so rewarding when we get to invite those folks on board for that experience. So no apprehension on the shared side, and just some varying perspectives of willingness to jump on board, but a vast majority are super enthusiastic to do so.
Great. Thanks for that. Clément, question for you regarding electrification. What percentage of the AVs you guys are operating are electric, and what's the typical average capacity for the AVs you're using or plan to use?
Okay. This is all electric because we really believe that the future of mobility is electric under the relevant conditions. You know, what is the primary source of electricity? How are you building a sustainable transportation network? If you have, like in certain places in Southern Australia, brown coal as the primary source of energy. But definitely electricity and electricity. If I go beyond the self-driving vehicles, but we as a partner of choice of Foothill Transit in Greater LA on the implementation of the new Proterra electric fleet, and we have electric fleets in Canada, in Quebec, both in buses, coaches, and also in school buses. Some pilots there and across the world. We do not see any self-driving shared vehicles coming without electricity in our patch right now. but to be determined. But definitely a key area of focus. The capacity of the shuttle, and Andreas has shown also the future robotaxi that Navia has developed and that we are bringing on the North American shores second half of 2018. So the shuttle in Vegas or in Lyon are actually around the 15 people, and the robotaxi is around 6. That gives you an idea. But we are not exclusive in our partnership with Navia, and would welcome looking at other types of vehicles too. But we believe that for transit on demand, 6 or 12 to 15 are actually nice sizes.
Great. And speaking, can you elaborate a little bit on the robo-taxis? Which cities are they? Fixed routes? Are they on demand? Are they shared? Obviously, they'll be electric. You just answered that. But can you share a little bit more about your plans whatever you can share publicly for the next rollout?
So we are looking at partners actually. So anybody is willing to do experimentation pilot projects with us, we'd really contemplate. We are currently in some kind of a request for interest from a public partners to say yes, we'd love to to see how it goes. And then whether it's a fixed route or on demand, it's been conceived to be a possible on-demand service. The subject really will be how do we start? Do we start on a small fixed route like a mini shuttle and then expand on transit on demand? Do we straight? All of this would need to be carefully looked at with the relevant partner when we have decided on who it shall be.
Great. Perfect. So if you're interested, let us know. I can connect you to Andreas or Clément. Clément, can you speak a little, maybe Clément first and then Andreas? You mentioned Boston and there's a question. Can you speak a little bit more about what you're doing in Boston?
Yeah, so in Boston is the biggest public transport contract in the United States. So the MBTA has always had outsourced operator for their commuter rail operation. So it's big and it's critical for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We've been operating this network for 4 years, and I mean the base of the assets are difficult to work with. But what's really extremely interesting part, but I have to say that we've had up to 2 feet of snow in Boston in the last 24 hours. So it's been a bit of a tough gig, but the team here has done an excellent job into having a good rush hour this morning after such a snowstorm. But what we have done, which is extremely innovative and the only place in the United States where we have that, is that the contract that we have has now an incentive onto increasing the ridership and the revenue collected from the passengers. And this is a first in the United States. It's a model that is widespread in Europe or in Australia, and actually it pushes the partners, both the public transport authority and the private contractor, to actually push for more ridership, and now we have brought some real innovation here in Boston in terms of how to interact with passengers, how to collect fares, and we're going to launch a marketing campaign to increase ridership on the network, to favor modal shift from individual private cars to shared mobility, being here the commuter rail. And we are extremely excited that the MBTA and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts have been pushing in that direction. We've launched this partnership on the ridership initiative and increasing revenue from the network 8 months ago now, and we've seen ridership on the commuter rail really picking up, and definitely more than other modes of transport. So our view now is that we really start seeing a nice story to be told and potentially to be shared with a meeting of the minds in a 6 months or a year.
Great. Fantastic. And last question to wrap things up from Jim Aloisi, who's in Boston. Andreas, this is for you. What steps can the mobility community take to ensure the emergence of AVs and shared riding systems do not widen the gap between those who take public transportation by necessity versus those who take it by choice? This may be a uniquely American problem. Thoughts on that, Andreas?
Yeah. So if I understood the question correctly, we are big believers in kind of using these types of autonomous services as a complement to the existing system. So it is a real effort on part of the city together with the partners to identify which sectors of the city may be underserved right now and could be connected to the broader public transit system by way of these economic autonomous vehicle services. And there's two ways of doing this. One way is, I call it the free market model. You just let everybody in like Uber and Lyft and hope for the best, or give a little bit of an incentive to cater to these underserved regions. Or like we just started or will start in June in Okta in Orange County. It's a service that is managed by the transit authority to do it right, to make sure that you have the service you need to feed your broader system rather than cannibalize it.
Great.
And to even stress more the point as Andreas has mentioned, and to Jim and wider audience, it's critical that the cities or the public transport authorities take this subject and regulate even infrastructure. You know, where to drop off and pick up. How do you ensure that you can go from one type of service to the other? So the infrastructure components of the city. All of that means regulation and decisions made by the communities and the people representing them, i.e. the cities or the public transport authorities.
Great. Thank you so much. And all of these issues and questions, especially around the future mobility game, I like that, Andreas. I'm going to use that from now on. And the 4 pillars of multimodality, and a lot of the questions that came in, there were 43 questions, so we did not get to all of them. Apologies, I wish we had 3 more hours to keep the conversation going, but we will keep the conversation going at our events, which are coming up. We have an event on May 23rd in Cleveland talking about these issues exactly, as well as our Ann Arbor Mobility Summit on June 14th, where we will have Keolis and AAA there for you to talk to someone from those 2 companies in person about these pilots and case studies, as well as lessons learned. And so Randy Durenberger, just to finish, he says he's interested in having a follow-up discussion about a potential pilot deployment for Sacramento, California. So we'll try to make that happen, Randy. Yeah, we already have a pilot. Okay, but Randy will be in touch with me, hopefully, and I'll connect you with Andreas and Clément. So with that, we have to wrap up. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate your feedback. We hope to see you at next month's webinar, as well as on our blog and all of our events. Again, Cleveland, May 23rd, Ann Arbor Mobility Summit on June 14th, as well as our 12th Annual Leadership Summit in November in Sacramento, California. All of those are available on our website at meetingoftheminds.org. We will be focused on the mobility future, urban mobility future discussion and future mobility game at all of those events. As well as Keolis and AAA being at most of those. So we hope to see all of you there. Thank you so much, Clément, Sarah, and Andreas. You're a bunch of stars, and congratulations on a huge project and a huge webinar today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
That concludes our session. We'll see you all later. Have a great day.